Presidential push. In light of Ferguson, the White House backs efforts to equip police officers with body cameras. Historic visit. Pope Francis makes his mark on the majority Muslim nation of Turkey. Easing the burden. Developing a new way to help Parkinson's patients do the simplest of things. And countering Cyber Monday, the Christian response to online commercialism ahead of Christmas. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, December 1st, 2014. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. As protests continue nationwide, a week after a grand jury did not indict a white Ferguson, Missouri officer for killing a young black man, President Obama holds top-level meetings on Ferguson tonight at the White House. Jason Calvi is there tonight. Jason?
Brian, the president is calling for $75 million for body cameras. Officers would wear these while on duty. The White House says it will instill trust in the community, but this comes amidst a day of nationwide protests.
It is our duty to fight!
About 50 people rally outside the U.S. Department of Justice today. In what protesters call a die-in, they lie down on the sidewalk for 4.5 minutes, symbolic of the 4.5 minutes Michael Brown lay dead in the street on August 9th after being shot by Officer Darren Wilson. Protesters also gather in New York City and at Yale.
We must love each other and protect each other.
It was part of the nationwide Hands Up, Walk Out movement today, promoted by the Ferguson National Response Network. One organizer tells EWTN News Nightly she wants the police officer who shot Michael Brown to go to trial.
That the same laws that are to protect other people protect us as well, and that people see that our life matters, that our life has value.
The U.S. Justice Department is still working on an investigation into possible civil rights violations in the shooting. Meanwhile, Darren Wilson resigned over the weekend, and the mayor of Ferguson says Wilson won't receive severance pay or benefits.
Now is the time for the city of Ferguson to begin its healing process, and with the citizens of Ferguson and the police department.
And the president had 3 meetings today with his cabinet, with civil rights activists, as well as community and faith leaders. The White House says that the president does not want to stop the funding for these programs that provide local law enforcement departments with militarized equipment, but the president's saying he doesn't want to build a militarized culture. Brian?
All right, thanks. Jason Calvi at the White House tonight. With protesters taking to the streets across the country today, Catholic Charities is doing its part for the Ferguson community. Teresa Ruzicka, president of Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of St. Louis, joining us by Skype. And Teresa, a week after that controversial grand jury decision, describe the atmosphere in Ferguson and what Catholic Charities is trying to do to help heal this divided community.
Well, the sun is out today in St. Louis, and I think that is indicative of the resiliency of our community. Certainly in Ferguson, we've all seen on television the tragic events unfolding over the last several months, and the decision of the grand jury last Monday also heated things up, as they say. And while we are disappointed and certainly sad by many of the events, we are a community that can heal, and I'm confident going forward we will be healing. We have been organized and present in Ferguson even before the tragic event of Michael Brown's killing in August. We have a number of agencies that have services that they offer up there in Ferguson and North County in general. There are a number of Catholic parishes up there. I've spoken with pastors in several of them, and we are looking forward to partnering with them in a more specific way with short-term assistance and probably more importantly, long-term solutions.
Well, we've also seen quite a bit of destruction there as a result of the riots. Many businesses have been looted, some destroyed. Is Catholic Charities able to help in any way to restore that business community?
Well, I think there are a number of issues that we need to address as a community, including the economic development area. And there are a number of funds that have been set up here in St. Louis. As part of that, we at Catholic Charities set up a Ferguson Fund, and that can be accessed through our website for donations. Our regional chamber has also set up a fund to try to help businesses The North County Chamber of Commerce that exists also has a fund. Our Regional Business Council here, which is comprised of, I would say, middle market businesses, has also taken a lead role.
I know so many people really want to do something to help, and it's really good to know that we can do that, trusting that Catholic Charities will use that money wisely. The president of Catholic Charities in St. Louis Archdiocese, Teresa Ruzicka, joining us today. Thank you, Teresa. We appreciate you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And now some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The FBI is alerting military personnel to be guarded in their online and social media activity. There is concern troops may be attracting the attention of the Islamic State and its supporters. A Department of Homeland Security and FBI bulletin warns ISIS has encouraged attacks against military members and law enforcement officers. The FBI says it has information about that terror group looking for like-minded individuals willing to carry out attacks in the U.S. Iraq's prime minister has retired 24 Interior Ministry officials. This is part of a restructuring of security to protect Iraq against Islamic State terror threats. Haider al-Abadi became Iraq's prime minister in September. He's already released a number of senior officials from military service. Al-Abadi says it's looking to restructure the security forces, making them more effective in the fight against terrorism. Pope Francis is back in Rome tonight after an intense trip to Turkey this weekend. He met with Muslim, Jewish, and Orthodox leaders, calling for religious freedom and dialogue. Appearing with Turkey's president, Pope Francis called on people of all faiths to respect human life and religious freedom. Turkey is a land of converging cultures. Istanbul is a city rich in both Islamic and Christian history. During his three-day visit, Francis toured the world-famous Blue Mosque, a site that was formerly a Christian cathedral and is now a museum. The visit went deeper than culture and politics. Francis prayed alongside a senior Muslim cleric, a gesture that touched the majority Muslim nation, echoing popes before him. He also ministered to Turkey's minority Catholic population, celebrating Advent Mass at the Church of the Holy Spirit. The final day of the papal trip was perhaps the most significant. In a strong show of Christian unity, Francis and the head of the Orthodox Church celebrated the Orthodox feast day of St. Andrew. They both talked about a desire for full unity between the two churches. Francis said that unity wouldn't signify the submission of one to the other or assimilation. He gave assurance that the Catholic Church does not intend to oppose any conditions except that of the shared profession of faith. The Pope and Patriarch then signed a common declaration imploring an end to the persecution of religious minorities in Syria and Iraq. Alan Holdren joins us from Rome tonight with more on this historic trip. So, Alan, how was the Pope's message received in Turkey?
Well, the Christian population there in Turkey is less than 1%, Brian, so by the Christians it was received very well. They were elated. The rest of the country is, of course, Muslim majority, so they were paying particular attention when the Pope went to Ankara and also when he visited the Blue Mosque, where he actually prayed there in silence. The local Turkish media said that his visit was especially timely because he was calling for peace when there is, of course, a conflict on the border with Syria right now. They said that that call for peace was very important today.
Well, another poignant moment came when the Pope met with Iraqi and Syrian refugee children. How did the kids react, Alan?
Well, there were about 100 of them. They were from across the Middle East, in particular Syria and Iraq, and also from Africa. They were ecstatic. I spoke with the head of this youth center that's run by the Catholic Church there in Istanbul, which takes care of these refugee children and educates them. I talked to him today, and he said that they received a call from a member of the Pope's entourage just after he had left, saying the Pope was very happy. He told these refugees that he shares in their suffering.
All right, thanks, Alan. Jack Fiegel is founder of Orientale Lumen, dedicated to Catholic Orthodox dialogue. So the Orthodox and Catholics have had good relationships now for about 50 years after centuries of really not even communicating with one another. What is different now with Francis and Bartholomew?
I think it's the personal relationship that the two of them have developed. This is now the fifth time they've met face-to-face since Francis was elected Pope. And it's amazing to see the bond that has developed between the two brothers in Christ.
It was very powerful to see them together at the Prayer for Peace in the Vatican Gardens on Pentecost Sunday. They have both expressed this desire for unity in full communion. What has to happen for that to happen?
I think there needs to be a continuation of the theological dialogue, because there are some issues that need to be resolved between the two churches. But I think the personal relationship of these two men needs to trickle down, so to speak, to the grassroots, to the people on the ground, the people in the parishes, to understand what unity is all about and why it's important.
So Christian unity can really accomplish a lot more than symbolically bringing these together. How do you think that Pope Francis and Patriarch Bartholomew are leveraging this new show of unity in world matters such as peace in the Middle East?
Well, I think they're expressing the Christian message, which is peace, love, and fellowship with your brother. And when the Catholics and the Orthodox can do this together, then the world will believe, as Christ told us in the Scripture. In a separated church, people say, what is this Christianity?
You're a member of the Byzantine Church, which is very Orthodox in many ways, and yet in communion with the Holy Father in Rome. You recently took a pilgrimage. Tell us about this grassroots effort that you're involved with and what's being discussed.
Yes, about a month ago, 40 of us went to both Rome and Constantinople, and we had private audiences.
Which, of course, is Istanbul, same city, right?
That's right, that's right. Istanbul today. We like to call it Constantinople still. And we met both privately with Pope Francis and Patriarch Bartholomew. It was a very historic event to have 40 lay people from America travel on this ecumenical pilgrimage led by Eastern Catholics.
So there were pilgrims from both Eastern Orthodox as well as Roman Catholicism.
That's right. There were 3 groups, 40 of us all together, and it was amazing how the group bonded and learned from each other on the trip, praying together, seeing the sights together, and then having the 2 fantastic private meetings with the 2 leaders of our churches.
Well, it's a very interesting time in church history. We appreciate the insight you offered tonight. Jack Fiegel with Orientale Lumen Foundation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, coming up, we hear reaction from the Orthodox community after this weekend's papal trip to Turkey. On Monday evening, the 1st of December, 25 years ago today, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev met with St. John Paul II at the Vatican. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and the Lame Duck Congress returned to Capitol Hill today. Members face a stacked agenda with little time before the new Republican majority takes over in January. A priority of this Congress is renewing and funding programs that keep the government running, hoping to avoid another shutdown. With the Department of Defense facing smaller budgets and unsustainable personnel benefits, something has to give. The Senate Armed Services Committee has passed proposed cuts, but the House committee is still rejecting them. Well, after making critical comments about the president's daughters, a staffer for Republican Congressman Stephen Fincher has resigned. Elizabeth Loughton stepped down as communications director for the Tennessee congressman's office. Referring to the pose and dress of the president's daughters at the pardoning of the Thanksgiving turkey last week, she said they should have showed a little more class. Lawton later apologized for the comment on her Facebook page. Her resignation was confirmed today by Congressman Fincher's chief of staff. The Supreme Court is looking at how our First Amendment right to freedom of speech applies to social media. Justices are focusing on the rights of individuals to use violent or threatening language on social media sites. They heard arguments today in the case of Anthony Ilanis. The Pennsylvania man posted lyrics on Facebook about killing his wife, shooting up a kindergarten class, and attacking an FBI agent. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison after being convicted on charges. The charges were filed by his estranged wife. He claims he never intended harm to anyone. He was just venting his anger. For decades, the High Court has held that true threats to harm another person cannot be protected under First Amendment rights. Lauren Coleman is a digicultural trend analyst. She owns the strategic consulting firm Link Agency. Lauren, how seriously should we take online threats?
I think that the context about, true threat is really important here. It's particularly, I think, troubling when we see so much of this kind of communication and back and forth across digital platforms. The most important thing, I think, to remember is that we're looking at things in a world now where it's written down, and even though it seems ephemeral, it can last, forever and ever and touch millions and millions of people around the world in just moments. So while it's something that should be taken quite seriously, we have to understand in what context is this being discussed? How actual, is the threat that is being put forth, and really what is the larger kind of feeling around it? These are questions that I think we're going to be asking ourselves as a society for, certainly the next couple of years to come.
Yeah, people can react from the gut. You have instant reaction. So there is a difference between an online threat then and, say, a personal threat.
I definitely think so. I mean, a lot of times, and I talk a little bit about this in my book, The Rise of the Smart Power Class, that there is something called disinhibition, where sometimes we actually see, in terms of research, people almost trying on different personalities, which doesn't actually mean that they will carry out the threat or anything that they're actually talking about. Sometimes it's just really a venting, if you will. Other times it's very serious.
Yeah, it's very frightening, too, to receive a threat like that.
Well, yes.
Is there any way that we can protect, especially women, from threats online and in person?
Right. Well, I think when we're looking at this online, initially, a lot of the larger social media platforms have particular departments just in place to be able to kind of track these types of kind of comments, threats, et cetera, and they're very great with reporting them to authorities, whether it's local, federal, et cetera. So that's one thing that we can kind of all be pretty much, safe and rest assured about. But in addition, I think it's just rather being smart and thinking about who one is engaging with and how from, the very beginning. I think as women, we always have to be rather concerned about how and who we're associating with, whether it's physical or online. But certainly online, yes, stalking, all of that can happen.
Lauren Coleman, the Link Agency, we appreciate the insight that you've been able to offer tonight.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
Well, simple tasks can be really frustrating for those with Parkinson's or other illnesses that cause severe shaking. Catherine Elliott reports Google is throwing money and creative thinking into a new product that may ease their burden.
For people with severe tremors, eating a bowl of cereal can be a daunting task. Shireen Vala has a condition known as essential tremor that causes uncontrollable shaking whenever she uses her hands.
It is very embarrassing, and especially in public, at the restaurant.
But Vala can now eat with more confidence and less mess, thanks to a high-tech spoon that counteracts the shaking.
Makes me more relaxed, less embarrassed, and less stressed.
So the device itself is a stabilizer.
The Liftware spoon was developed by Lift Labs, a California startup recently acquired by Google. The device detects a person's tremor and makes instant adjustments to keep the spoon or fork steady.
So if I had a tremor and I move to the right, it will physically move the spoon to the left to help stabilize that motion and allow you to eat without spilling.
In clinical trials, Liftware spoons reduce shaking by an average of 76%.
I think it's one more thing we have to offer patients right now to help their quality of life.
Lift Labs founder Anupam Pathak and Google are now developing other stabilizing devices for the 10 million people worldwide who suffer from essential tremor or Parkinson's disease. At $295, the spoon isn't cheap, but Vala says it's made mealtimes enjoyable again. Catherine Elliott, EWTN News Nightly.
What a blessing. Thank you, Catherine. Up next on Cyber Monday with its enticing online sales, a Christian group responds to commercializing this season of Advent.
I'd rather go to the stores and shop directly in the stores, but my husband loves shopping online.
It's pretty good. I mean, you get a lot of cheaper deals.
Easy, fast, quick, and delivered right at your door.
I prefer to have my hands-on thing to look at them in person.
My children do it. They shop online. They shop on Cyber Monday.
Happy Cyber Monday, everybody. I won't be participating. I believe the commercialization of Christmas to be just a little overwhelming.
Thoughts on Cyber Monday gathered by our video journalist Mark Irons here in D.C. Thanks for joining us on this Cyber Monday, December 1st. I'm Brian Patrick. Michelle Quiles is with International Justice Mission, a group dedicated to protecting the poor in the developing world. So with Cyber Monday and all the big online sales, can you make the connection for us between shopping and labor trafficking?
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is, as we all know, some of the busiest time to shop around the world, especially in America. But at International Justice Mission, we actually have an alternative for people instead of shopping, and that is to bring back the true meaning of Christmas and be the light in the world that God and Christ really calls us to be. And at International Justice Mission, we try to protect the poor from violence around the world. And so we actually have our own gift catalog. But instead of buying actual physical presents, what you're doing is you're sending International Justice Mission in, our investigators in, to investigate crimes where people have perhaps been sold into trafficking, sold into slavery, to actually work with local authorities, rescue them and bring them out. And then we send lawyers in to actually represent them so that we can send those criminals to jail to make sure that they understand that they can't do this to hurt other people. And then we have social workers that work with the clients in which we're serving to help restore them through therapy and long-term aftercare.
This is a huge issue for our Holy Father. In fact, isn't your leader of your organization meeting with him?
Yes, actually, we are so privileged that Gary Haugen, our president and CEO, who founded International Justice Mission, today is meeting with the Pope to discuss how we can address the issue of slavery around the world. It's a huge problem. There's over 36 million people that are trapped in slavery, 2 million of which are children. And these people wake up every day without choices. They wake up every day enslaved, being beaten, abused, and afraid for what their day has to come.
Is there any way for shoppers, especially online shoppers, because you really don't have a direct connection, to get some kind of an understanding of which stores and or manufacturers may be connected with this slavery?
I would encourage people to do their research, to go to fair trade websites, and they can find out which products are certified and which perhaps might not be. Mm-hmm.
Also, your organization is partnering with Dressember. Can you tell us what that's about?
We are. Well, as you can see, I'm wearing a dress today in honor of the kickoff of Dressember. Dressember started actually in 2009 by one of IJM's supporters, and it was simply a quirky style challenge. And then she decided last year her heart was very moved by what's happening in the world, and she wanted to do something about it. So she said, hey, what if I actually ask people to wear a dress every single day in the month of December?
Women, right?
Women. Now, if you want to be silly and have fun, you know.
Stick with the suit.
Stick with the suit. You would wear a dress every single day and then ask your friends to sponsor you, and the funds raised go to benefit IJM. And so it's a way to help.
So one of the goals here is to promote ethical shopping. How would you define that?
I think ethical shopping is making sure, like you said, that that slaves are actually not used in the supply chain when products are being made.
Okay, and so tomorrow, of course, after Cyber Monday comes Giving Tuesday, and I'm sure that ties all in with this.
Yes, we are celebrating Giving Tuesday, of course, at International Justice Mission. And like we said, you can either go to ijm.org/gift catalog, and you can purchase one of the items that are in here. Or you can participate in Dressember, and that's just a different way of actually getting involved versus even just writing a check. It's a way to wear a dress, and every day when you're wearing the dress in the office and people are asking you, why are you wearing a dress? You can actually share the message of the issue and what's taking place in the world and let other people know we have to do something about this. We have to be Christ's light in the world.
All right, and the rest of us, of course, can pray for those who are inflicted by this. Michelle Quiles with the International Justice Mission, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us. Until tomorrow, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, I'm Brian Patrick. Thanks for watching. We leave you tonight with these snapshots of the Pope's weekend trip to Turkey. Good night and God bless you.